It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Hello, hello, hello. Hi, how are you? Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman, as always. Thank you for joining us. Nice to have you with us. Today is the All Goalie All the Time show. We have an entire show dedicated to the movie Goalie, based on the life of hockey player Terry Sawchuk. I'm very excited to promote this film. It's a good film. It was released in theaters on January 31st and then will be available on digital February 25th. It's from Dark Star Pictures. And we have MarkO'Brien, who plays Terry Sawchuk. We have Georgina Riley, who plays his wife in the film. And unbeknownst to me, she actually is his real wife. So it made for an interesting interview. And we also have Adriana Maggs, who is the director and writer of the film. So very excited to have them all here. Just quickly before we get to Adriana, if you are a musician and you would like to have your track featured on our show for a month, please check out our complete radio promotional package. Your track will air once a week for 4 weeks over all of our platforms. Your track will always be played at the very beginning of the show before commercials or interviews. You will also get a 15-minute interview on our show to promote your album, single, upcoming gigs, or anything you want to talk to me about. Your photo, bio, and links to your website and music will be featured on our music artists page on our website. The 4 shows that feature your track will permanently archive over all of our online platforms such as Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, and a whole bunch more. This is a great opportunity for any up-and-coming music artist to get some more exposure for their music without having to pay a fortune. You get all this for $49.99. Please check out DouglasColemanShow.com and click on the complete radio promotional package link. Once again, that's the DouglasColemanShow.com and click on the complete radio promotional package link. If you like what we do here at the Douglas Coleman Show, we would appreciate it if you could show your support by going to GoFundMe.com and make a contribution to help us continue bringing you quality broadcasting as you've been listening to for the past 5 years on this show. Any contribution will be greatly appreciated. Please go to GoFundMe.com and do a search for Douglas Coleman Show. We come right up. So enough babbling on. Here is Adriana Maggs. Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Adriana Maggs. Hi, Adriana. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Let's see. I just watched your movie, Goalie, is the story of Terry Sawchuk, and I liked it. It was a good movie. Not a whole lot of movies about hockey, though. I mean, I can't remember too many that I've ever seen, honestly. It seems to be one of the least covered sports in cinema. Would you agree with that?
I do. I do. I don't know if the NHL loves movies being made about hockey. I'm not sure we didn't have a great time trying to get this movie made with with proper logos and with the NHL kind of sanctioned. I think that there's an image that they want portrayed, and that's not always the true story. So there's a little bit of a butting heads there.
So they were less than cooperative when you started to make this film?
Well, they ended up not being involved in the film at all. Yeah, they're not that interested in having kind of blood on the ice or like fighting on the ice, those kind of aspects of hockey portrayed. So they did ask us to rewrite the script with a lot of the kind of fighting and violence and negativity taken out of it. And our issue was that one of the books we based this on was my father's book, but another book that we based it on was a biography of Terry Sawchuk that was had the blessing of his family, and his family. It was important to kind of show all aspects, even the negative aspects of his life. So, when you kind of get caught between those two, I believe there was also talk from the NHL that they might want to have final cut of the film, which we can't give them that, because if they don't like 45 minutes, then we're in big trouble.
It seems to me a little befuddling because, I was never a huge hockey fan, but I certainly have watched hockey games. I grew up in Boston, so it was all about Boston Bruins. That was what people went to see. When there was a fight on the ice, then everybody stood up and got excited. That's sort of par for course for a hockey game. So why they would be sensitive to showing something like that in a film is beyond me, particularly where this was a historical piece from the 40s and 50s and 60s, which still amazes me that they did not wear any head protection at all. That's truly astonishing. They didn't even think about it. In one part of your film, Terry finally starts wearing a hockey mask. But that was later, right? Like for the first 20 years of his career, he never wore a mask or a helmet or anything?
No, and I think he had 105 stitches in total.
God.
To his face. There's actually a fantastic Time magazine had a cover, and it was a picture of his face were all the scars to have been present at the same time. So not that some had healed and some were fresh, but all of them at the same time. And you can Google this, and it's just fascinating. But it's brutal. And then it was Jacques Plante, actually, who was the first goalie to wear a mask, and I believe he took a little bit of, teasing for it. I think that it was kind of, I don't want to say it was considered unmanly, but it wasn't.
That's the term I was going to use, that they would tease him for being, less than manly for wearing a mask. Yeah.
So they shattering your cheekbones on a regular basis. I can't imagine.
Well, but, even football back in those days, they wore much less padding. And, it just was par for course for almost any kind of sport back then, I think,
And it was that leather, I don't know how much leather can kind of take a hit, you know what I mean?
Yeah. The old football helmets was basically a leather cap. It was like something you'd put on to go on a motorcycle. Those old right. That's about all it was. I don't know how much protection that would give you.
Why did we think leather could stop anything? I don't know.
Could stop the rain. That's about it. But if somebody if somebody pounces on you and slams your head into the ground, it's not going to do much good. So I wanted to ask you, you were the writer and the director for this film. How did you get interested in Terry Sawchuk?
Well, actually, so it was my sister and I actually wrote the film together. She were both kind of have careers as screenwriters, and we mostly we mostly told kind of female perspective stories, kind of about women and stuff like that. And but then my father wrote a book of poetry about. It's poetry, but it's not rhyming poetry. It's kind of it was about Terry Sawchuk. It was he wrote it doing a whole bunch of interviews with the retired players who just, if you read this book, he kind of just sat back and let their stories become these poems, and they're exquisite. I mean, they're haunting. These men were warriors once. They've had time to reflect on a life since then, you know what I mean, since their retirement, and they have such beautiful insights. And to be honest with you, it's just haunting and beautiful, and it's about mortality, and it's sad, and it's uplifting, and it's, so we were shocked that our dad could do, that our dad could write, you know, such a beautiful book. So, I had directed a film that was in Sundance, and the producer, when I got back, a producer was asking me what I wanted to do next, and so my sister and I asked my dad what he thought of us adapting that, and kind of putting it on screen. So he was good with it.
So your dad was a hockey fan, I take it, or is? Is he still with us?
He's a huge hockey fan.
I'm talking as if he might be not here. Is he still alive?
Oh yeah, he's still alive.
Oh, okay. All right.
He's mad now because his pipes are frozen over in Newfoundland, is where we're from.
Oh.
But my uncle played for the Chicago Blackhawks. He started in the WHA, but then he went on to the NHL. And my dad taught him how to play. My dad was 5 years older than him, and my uncle made it to the NHL, and of course my dad didn't. So I think there was always something longing in him of kind of how does he become part of this world, and so he did.
Are you a hockey fan?
I mean, I'm a hockey fan, as in I watch hockey and I like to go to a game or two every year. But I would say even more than that, I'm kind of Canadian, and the mythology of hockey for us is so powerful.
Yeah.
So I don't just like the team that's winning this year. I love I always say, that the Norse have their gods and the Greeks have their gods, and then we're this young country, and it's too cold to live here, and so that the players that go out on that ice are they are representing our mortality. Like, it goes really deep with Canadians in hockey. It was invented by Indigenous people here, and it is something that we're all we all have a part of.
I think you're right. I think hockey is definitely ingrained in Canadian culture. I think it runs very deep, like you said. Because I have yet to meet a Canadian that was not a hockey fan. I spent a good deal of time in Toronto and a couple of Montreal, because it was close to Boston. It was always fun to go there. And, every place I went, every bar I went to, it was always about hockey. That was it.
Yeah.
And pretty
exactly.
amazing.
It gets us through the winter, I think.
Yeah, you guys have got a long winter. I can remember going from Boston in the winter to Toronto, and Boston was warm compared to Toronto. There was just something about the wind coming off of the lake that just cut right through you. And I thought, God, it's cold here. And coming from Boston, you'd think...
Boston, it's not even that much further south, is it? It just doesn't make sense.
No, I mean, and it's, by plane, it's less than an hour. So it's very close, and Boston's right on the ocean. But something about being on the ocean keeps Boston warmer than Toronto.
Right.
And I don't know, I froze to death when I went to Toronto.
Yeah.
And I went in February, which was probably not the best month to go there. But I my attitude was, well, it's cold in Boston, so it's cold there, so what? But it was just really cold in Toronto when I got there. But
I know, in Toronto, and then Montreal's even colder. Montreal's this great city, and everyone wants to go there, but just not in February, not right now.
I had a great time anyways. You stay inside and you drink beer and you watch hockey. I mean, that's what you do, right? But,
and there's something really amazing about hiding inside with a group of people when it's just too cold or too blizzardy or too snowy. Like, we find our sense of community again when we're trapped with people inside. It reminds us to be alive, I guess.
It was a different environment. I know people that don't live in the United States or in Canada tend to think of it as one group of people, but the Americans and Canadians are very different in the sense that I know I'm going to piss off my American audience by saying this, but I'll say it anyways, is that Canadians are like Americans without the attitude. That's what I took from it, you know? There just isn't that we're the biggest, we're the best attitude in Canada. But culturally, we're sort of similar. And
I mean, I guess we're from the same, like we are an amalgamation of all people from all kinds of countries, and that we have in common, yeah.
Yeah. And we all started out as, you know, if you want to go way back, and I mean, the history of Canada was when the war broke out in the colonies, the loyalists went to Canada and started their own country because they wanted to stay loyal to the Crown of England. You know, and then from there, it split off, and the French were there, and then that's a whole nother story. But there's just a definite difference of attitude, because I can remember going to the bars and things in Toronto, and people just weren't that interested in talking about stuff that nobody cared about. And that, you know what I mean? They would just... Like,
you mean getting all riled up and getting in kind of political arguments and stuff? Yeah,
and political arguments. I mean, nobody just cared. Everybody was just there to do whatever it was, be it watch hockey or just talk about things in general. And it was refreshing, you know? It's
especially
true. It's
now.
It's
like a simplicity, yeah.
Yeah, especially now, because America is so crazy politically, but... anyways, sorry. Let's see. We got sidetracked there. Anything you want to tell us about the film, and then we got to kind of wrap it up.
That it's a hockey movie, but hopefully it's a movie about life and about people and about human beings and about, you know, just masculinity and forgiveness and love and family. So you don't really maybe have to be a hockey fan to go see it.
Okay. And the film is called Goalie, in case people want to know the title. Directed and written by Adriana Maggs, and it, according to your sheet, releases in theaters on January 31st, and then will be available on DVD and digital come February 25th from Dark Star Pictures. Thank you so much for coming on. Nice talking to you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Best of luck with the film.
I'm very jealous that you're in Las Vegas.
Best of luck with the film. I hope it does very well.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records, and it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go. Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, Stuart, Epps, EPPS, at talk, TALK, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you. Bye.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Tired of living in a culture of lies, fake news, and alternative facts? The Pro-Truth Pledge reverses the tide of lies by calling on politicians, and everyone else, to commit to truth-oriented behaviors. The pledge asks signees to commit to 12 behaviors that research in behavioral science shows lead to truthfulness, such as clarifying one's opinions and the facts, citing one's sources, and celebrating people who update their beliefs toward the truth. Private citizens who sign the pledge get the benefit of contributing to a more truth-oriented society. Public figures get more substantive rewards for signing the pledge in the form of positive media and public recognition. The pledge crowdsources the truth by asking volunteers to evaluate the statements of public figures who sign the pledge. Take the pledge, demand that your elected representatives do so, and encourage your friends to take it at protruthpledge.org.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
And now...
Hey, Rocky! Watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat!
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve! Presto!
Wrong hat!
I take a 7.5.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Mark O'Brien. Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. You are the lead in the movie Goalie. We just talked to Adriana, and now we're going to talk to you. You play Terry Sawchuk, and he was, well, I watched the movie. I liked the movie. I didn't know that much about him at first, but he was something else, wasn't he? Pretty amazing character.
Yeah, he was an interesting guy. I think because his determination was so dogged. I think that made him stand out quite a bit, and it was also like his life was pretty interesting, and just like there's so much tragedy involved, and so much heartache, and so much physical obstacles he had to play through that made it a really interesting thing, especially considering the position he played at that time in not just hockey but in sports. Like he didn't wear a mask and all that kind of thing. So I think all of them fed into one another to kind of reveal who he actually was.
I talked a little bit about that not wearing masks with Adriana, and it just amazes me that the guys back then did not wear masks. And apparently when they started to wear them, they got teased about it. Like, you're a girly man for wearing a mask. Yeah. And I mean, it was a very manly thing to just get slammed in the face by a puck. Now, when you were filming this, obviously they weren't actually like throwing pucks at you and shooting pucks at you, I assume, right?
Well, actually, we did use a real puck quite a few times because, you can use a foam puck, but the foam puck doesn't have the density and weight of a real puck, so therefore it's harder to choreograph plays, like shots and passes, because the puck doesn't travel the same way. So there were many points in the movie where we just used a real puck because it just made a lot more sense. And that was, my call as much as anyone else's. I was just like, this is not working with a foam puck. It doesn't travel the same way. So I took a couple knocks, you know what I mean? But that's part of the gig.
How different was, aside from the mask, how different is the equipment that they were wearing back then as opposed to what one would wear now?
That's a really good question. You're the first person who's asked me that, actually. It's quite different. The biggest difference is the pads, the goalie pads. They weren't built the same way as they are today, and what happens is they get waterlogged. So you start the day, you start a game, and by the end of it, after the pads going down the ice and getting wet so often, they're probably almost double weight by the time the game is over. So you can imagine just how exhausted you are anyway, and then on top of it, everything you're wearing is a bit heavier, especially your goalie pads, which is the thing you're moving the most. So there's that, and on top of it, that their chest protectors and shoulder pads and stuff were not near as advanced as today. I mean, the stuff I was wearing was old school, and I could feel pucks easily. Like, you know, the amount of bruises these guys had. I mean, there's that one shot in the movie where you see how bruised up Terry is, and that's accurate. His son told me, he said, I saw him go into the shower, and his whole body was black.
Oh.
Yeah, like, so it just wasn't very advanced at all, but they didn't have anything to compare it to, so for them, that was just their trade.
Now, those pads were all made of leather back then, right?
Yeah, so it absorbs in a weird way, too, and the foam underneath, whereas today it's completely different. I don't know what they're made of today, but it's completely different. And so it's just, you know, now they even have those neck guards and stuff as well today. Like, they didn't have anything back then. Even the block and scoop or catcher, sometimes people call it, glove, even that was really rudimentary and didn't have much protection, especially on the backside of your hand. So if you didn't catch the puck and it hit the back of your hand, you were in trouble.
So now, do you actually play hockey, or was this just purely for acting purposes?
No, I actually play. I actually still play 3 times a week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah. So I've been playing for many years. I've been playing for 28 years, actually.
28 years. Oh, well, okay. So you were the right man for the job for this movie.
Yeah. I kind of was lined. I mean, I'm not a goalie, but I certainly played in net many times over the years. So I had something to come in with. I had some sort of experience, so that helped for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, plus you kind of look like him, anyways. I mean, I saw the pictures of him. I mean, your face is much nicer than his. His face was beat to death, but I mean, you know, you played him very well. I mean, you did have a similarity to the look, and when you got the haircut right and everything, you look pretty much like him.
Yeah, and that helps for yourself too when you look in the mirror and you're like, okay, cool, I kind of resemble this person. So it's definitely helpful.
So how did you get involved with this project, aside from being the ultimate guy to do it?
Well, Adriana Maggs, the writer-director, she is an old friend of mine, and she made another film 10 years ago called Grown Up Movie Star that was wonderful and you know, was successful, played at Sundance. And I was in that, and we'd been friends a bit before that, and then we just remained friends over the years. And she kind of mentioned it to me here and there, but I wasn't sure how real it was. I wasn't sure if I was actually the guy everybody wanted. I didn't know, and then it just became official, and I was like, absolutely, I want to do it. And I just was happy to work with her again, you know.
What was it like working with Kevin?
Oh, Kevin's wonderful. He's a friend of mine. I actually called him up and asked him to do it. And because I just thought he'd be perfect for it, and he's just such a great actor in everything he does, and he's just so funny and makes it look easy, and I just have a blast with him. He's one of the funniest guys you'll ever meet in your life. So anyone who can make me laugh like he does, I'll do anything for him.
Tell me a little bit about your background, aside from playing hockey. How did you get involved in acting, and what kind of stuff have you done?
Well, I'm from Newfoundland, which is on the east coast of Canada, a province of about 500,000 people, and there's a thriving art scene there. Even though in the capital there's only about 120,000 people, but everybody there is involved in the arts in some sort of way. It's this great like haven for artists in a way, and I didn't really the arts didn't run in my family too strongly. My sister is a singer-songwriter. So she was involved. My sisters were kind of interested in theater, but when they were younger, but nothing professionally. And I just was in love with movies, and I just wanted to be a part of movies. So I started making movies with my buddies, and then I just started working harder and harder and making stuff on my own. And then I moved to Toronto, and then I moved to Los Angeles, and I kind of just kept working from there, and just in building, and I just wrote and directed my first feature. So I always kind of wanted to be involved in all aspects of production, and takes a lot of work, for sure, but, eventually things start to kind of move in your direction if you keep your head strong.
How do you like the indie film industry versus
I love it.
Studio, getting signed to a major studio or something?
I absolutely love it. I mean, look, I've done studio movies, and they can turn out great, for sure. I did Arrival was a studio movie, and I'm very proud of that, but indie movies a lot of times give you a lot of freedom, and it opens up for collaboration with the people you're working with. because there's less on the line. There's less cooks in the kitchen. There's less money at stake. And now that's not to say that studio films are bad or wrong, but if I had a company and I had millions and millions of dollars at stake, I would want to say as well. So it just involves more people and more say, and I think it's a medium. Film is a medium of collaboration, but really it's a director's medium. So it's really the writer and the director. It's their vision of what they wanted to do, and then you collaborate with them. You can't have a director come in and be like, "This is what I want to do," and then have 25 people chime in and tell them how they contractually can't do that. So that doesn't happen as much in indie film, and that's why I like it. It's a playground for artists.
How do you like the idea, the distribution aspect of indie, though? Because I've had a lot of indie filmmakers on who have said that, they love making the film and editing and putting it all together, but they said the distribution is really the tough part, the unpleasant part of the whole scenario.
It is. You're right, it is, because it's very ruthless. And it's also like, who do you have and what they're worth? I mean, that's what they do, and I'm not saying they're wrong for doing it, but they have a dollar sign and an amount for certain actors. So then it becomes a business, and it has to be a business because there's money at stake and people are spending money. So it deserves to be a business, but at the same time, you can't put a value on art. So it becomes this huge conflict. And I think distribution, therefore, is very difficult for independent films. But you know what? The positive spin on it is that there are two things. One, there are more avenues to get your film seen nowadays, streaming and all kinds of stuff like that. And the other thing is, it ups your game that if you make something good enough, if you're Barry Jenkins and you make Moonlight, or you're Ryan Fleck and you make Half Nelson with Ryan Gosling, when you do something like that, if you make it good enough, it will eventually get seen. If you're Jeremy Saulnier and you make Blue Ruin, you will eventually get there. So it makes you have to just be as good as you can. And if you make something really good, normally it even if it's not seen by everybody, it can be seen by the right people, where those right people, either an effect is had on them, which is what you want, or it helps you make the next one because the right people saw it and saw your talent. So there's positives and negatives to it. It's definitely a struggle, though, for sure.
Well, because I think the major studios definitely have the advantage when it comes to distribution. Similarly,
oh, absolutely, they own it.
Yeah, they own it, right. Similarly, in the music industry, I mean, there's lots and lots of great indie music artists and bands and things out there, but when it comes to getting their single out there, they can't compete with the major labels to be on the front page of iTunes.
No, you can't, and you're only lucky to slip through, but if you just keep pushing and you're good at what you do, I think eventually most people, you do get seen. It's just really difficult.
Let me go back to the movie for a second. One of the things that I read in the bio, and also was pretty obvious from the character of the movie, that they weren't paid a lot of money back then. It's not like now where people get multi-million-dollar contracts. Although I have heard that hockey is about the lowest paid of all the major sports. Is that true? Like they're far less paid than football players or baseball.
The highest paid player in hockey is like $12 million a year. I mean, highest paid in the other sports is about $45 million.
Right.
So it's a large discrepancy. Yeah. So
what was Terry Sawchuk paid back then? Do you know?
I don't actually know. I don't know what he was paid. We didn't have access to that information. And I didn't feel like I needed to know. I felt like that would be a bit invasive, actually, to try and find that out. All I know is that a lot of those guys had jobs in the off season. They worked at grocery stores and stuff like that, and they had no union. So they were paid really little. Like it was a really difficult time until and then the union came along, and Ted Lindsay and everything kind of started the union, which helped a lot of players. It helped them be able to sustain themselves, because people look at these celebrity athletes and like, oh, they get paid too much, but the market dictates that. You know what I mean? Like Steph Curry gets paid a lot, but look how much money he brings to that franchise. It's the market dictates it. So I don't think these guys are overpaid. They've worked their whole lives to get to that point.
Well, even back then, baseball players and football players, they weren't paid the kind of money that they're being paid now.
Oh, God, no. No. It's changed so drastically. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, it's become a business because although in one aspect it was a business then, it's become a much bigger business now. I think thanks to television.
Yes.
I think once TV got a hold of sports, it changed the whole reality of the thing. When people still had to pay,
just
buy tickets and go see it, there was a limited audience. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the ad revenue is crazy.
Well, last question before we wrap this up. What would be your ultimate role as an actor? What would you like to do that you haven't done yet?
It's hard to know until you read it. You read things, and like I'm doing this show, City on a Hill, for Showtime, and when I read the pilot, I was just like, I have to play that part. I have to play that part. I don't know why. I don't know how. I can't put my finger on it. It just has to be done. So I think it's like that. Like, there's never a historical figure or someone like that who I look at, I'm like, I need to play them. It's when it's really good writing, and you're just like, oh, it's just there. It's almost like you hear the character's voice in your head. You're just like, I just connect with what this is, and I can't articulate it. And sometimes the people you're playing are not good people, but you're like, I just understand it somehow. So it's kind of, I think it's something that's hard to put into words. I just am looking for good material, good writers, good collaborators, and nice human beings to work with, and that's the most important thing.
Well, best of luck. I hope things working out. How's this movie doing? It's been released already, right?
Yeah, it's playing in LA right now, and Minnesota, and I think Vegas and Detroit. And it was released last year in Canada, and you know, people really respond to it. I kind of get inundated with messages about it, and, very positive. So I think it's done quite well.
Well, good. I'm happy to hear it. My guest is MarkO'Brien. He is an actor. He's the lead in the movie Goalie. He plays Terry Sawchuk. Mark, thanks so much for coming on. Best of luck. I hope the film does very well.
Thanks so much. Nice talking to you.
Hi, this is John Morgan, production supervisor for DJC Productions, and you're listening to The Douglas Coleman Show.
Okay, please welcome to The Douglas Coleman Show, Georgina Riley. Hi, Georgina. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. You are also in the movie Goalie, which we are featuring and promoting on this particular show. This show is all Goalie all the time. The whole show is about the movie. I watched the movie.
Oh, awesome.
I like the movie a lot. And I just found out that MarkO'Brien is actually your husband, and you play his wife in the film as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, in the film, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the character you played wasn't Mrs. Sawchuk, though, right? She had a different name.
Well, her name was Pat Morey. But she was they were married for quite a long time. So, you know, in the movie, she's known as Pat Morey, and now she is. But I imagine she would have taken his name at some point and was Sawchuk.
Okay, because in the credits, it didn't say, you know, Pat Sawchuk, and most women in those days took the husband's name. It's not common or as common now, but back then, pretty much everyone did.
Yeah, I wonder if it was just out of a respect thing because they were no longer married and she's still alive. So, you know, just having her maiden name there. Yeah, Adriana would be able to answer that one better. I think it's just because when they start the movies, they're not married. So, yeah.
Oh, all right.
That's probably where that came from. Yeah.
She's still alive now, you said?
Yeah, she is. Yeah, I believe she lives in Florida. I spoke to her on the phone.
Oh, wow.
When we were, right before we started shooting the movie, and she's wonderful and delightful and a very cheerful lady, and it was very interesting to get to talk to her.
Oh, I bet. What did she have to say about her husband?
I tried to be pretty respectful and not get into... You know what I mean? I didn't want to ask too many questions. I'd obviously read some candid interviews where she had spoken about her husband, but she actually, what I found so interesting was that she was so proud of him and everything he achieved and was proud of the Sawchuk name and you know, definitely emphasized that the guys have it way better today in hockey and they don't even realize how it was, you know, and these guys coming up in that time period really, sacrificed a lot for the game to eventually change and become better, you know? So it was an interesting conversation.
Well, in the film, their relationship was pretty tumultuous. And how long were they actually married?
They got divorced 50, I want to say, I can't remember all the dates on the top of my head. We shot this a while ago now, so it's hard to, they got divorced in late 60s, and they got together in the 50s. I want to say they were together almost 20 years.
Okay.
15 to 20 years, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, because he died in 1971.
Yeah.
And he was just
and they were divorced at that time.
40 years old, which was incredibly young.
I know.
But he had a...
They met very young, though. When you meet him in the movie, she's 17, and he's probably 20, I want to say, 19, 20. So, yeah, it was they were together for a good chunk. I mean, they had 7 children together. So you need some time to do that.
7 children. Yeah, okay. I guess you would need a little time for that. They had to be together at some point. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what was your takeaway from this story and from playing her?
I just think that sometimes your integrity to yourself and the people around you sometimes has to be, not sometimes, should always be put first before your career and your passions. And I think it's just a fine balance, right? Especially I'm an artist, and I understand you're so passionate and one-minded sometimes about this thing that is very competitive and hard to achieve. And then, but you want to have a family and children and life, and it's a balance. And I think I learned a lot of you be careful what you sacrifice, because you lose out, and that thing that you are so passionate about doesn't last forever, and it changes a lot. So, but the things that are stable in your life are your family and those who mean something to you. So I learned a lot that way, especially playing the family element of this. Those would be my main takeaways.
Now, as I mentioned before, that I did not know is that you and Mark are actually married. And
yes.
I want to ask you a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Are you guys both from Newfoundland?
No, I grew up in England. I left England when I was 16, and I moved to Toronto, Canada. But we did meet in Newfoundland when I did a guest star on a show that he was working on there, and I flew out there. So I've been to Newfoundland a lot, but I'm not a Newfoundlander.
You were born in England, you said?
Yeah, I was born and raised in England until I was 16.
Well,
yeah.
You totally lost your accent, didn't you?
Yeah, mainly because of work. When I go home, I have it, but if you put me back in London, it comes straight back. But mainly just with all the work I do with American accent and stuff, it just sort of, slowly dissipated.
You can switch it on and off. If somebody needed a British woman, you could do it, yeah? The sound is in there. All right, so how did you guys meet?
We met, Mark was on a show called Republic of Doyle that was playing on the CBC in Canada, and I did a guest star on the show, and we actually met at the pub that everyone used to go to every Thursday called the Duke of Duckworth.
Well, this
we
is
had
like
an
the movie.
old-fashioned meet cute. Yeah.
Okay. Because in the movie, Terry meets Pat at a diner, yeah?
Yes, he does meet Pat at a diner, yeah. I wasn't working the pub, though, so slightly different, but yeah, similar kind of setting.
So how is it when two actors are married? Because sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, when both are kind of... obviously, you wouldn't compete for the same roles necessarily, but
no.
Do you have that element of competition with each other? Like, who's the better actor, or you know what I mean? Or is it...
No, you can't play that game. You have to be... You can't last if you... Obviously, look, it's not easy being married to somebody who does the same job as you, and that, sometimes somebody's working more, somebody's working not as much. We also have a child, so I was out of work for a couple of years, and, there's definitely moments, but we have such a good communication that we can we also understand each other so much, because the industry means, our work means so much to us both. So there's an understanding. So when someone maybe feels a little like, oh, I'm kind of bummed about this or upset about that, the other person has been there and just can really understand it and is just acknowledging of it and is like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And we help each other with our auditions and reading our scripts, and we just have this thing in common that we can actually help each other with, and we don't make each other wrong for when we're kind of, you know, feeling disappointed and the other one might be working a bit more. It's an understandable thing. But yeah, we do not play the competition card because I think that would just be this is not going to end well. I don't think. But if we're going to play it, I'm better.
Well, I was thinking while you were talking, I was thinking of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, you know, who were both, you know, A-list actors, and their relationship didn't end too well. And I can't help but believe that... I
don't know if that's to do with acting.
Well,
but
it might not have been. You know, it might not have been. But they did do movies together.
Yes.
And who knows? I mean, nobody knows what happened between them except for them.
Yeah.
But that was the next question, actually. This is the lead into this. In the movie Goalie, you play Terry Sawchuk's wife. Now, how was it working with Mark? Because you don't always... When you go out on jobs, you're not always working with Mark, right?
No, of course not.
So was it different?
I loved it. Was it what, sorry?
Well, was it different? I mean, like, if somebody else had played Terry Sawchuk, would it have been a different experience for you than working with your husband, your real husband?
Yeah, I think it would definitely be different. Every actor's different, has different qualities. I think one of the main reasons why playing the wife of somebody you're married to can be kind of nice is that there's sometimes on indie movies you don't have a lot of preparation time. You're jumping in and you're shooting a movie in 3 weeks, and you have to establish a history with someone. And the way, when you've been with someone for a long time, the way you stand around each other, the way you hold hands, the way you put your arm around, like, there's a level of just automaticity that you're so comfortable with that if you're going to play a couple and, you know, you feel comfortable, it's not uncomfortable, you know, we're married. So it's just very comfortable physically together, which is, when you have that level of relaxation when you're trying to do a part like that, is so wonderful. If we were playing a couple that just met, maybe that would be a harder thing, right? Because we'd have to strip back to basics and not have that level of comfort. So in that regard, it was really nice because we played our characters. The movie spans over about, you know, from 1950s to the 1970s. So we had a big time area to cover, and we were just comfortable physically with each other. So in every scene, we look like a real married couple in the way we stand and the way we fight and the way we, you know, those things are just already inherently there, even though we're not playing ourselves.
Well, that's true. And the body language is much more telling. You know, I think if you think back to something like I Love Lucy, where, you know, they were actually married for real, and it was so believable, probably because they were married for real. Had one of them been somebody else, I don't think the show would have been as successful.
Yeah, you never know, and it always adds a fun little thing when you know that. Sometimes people watch it and they I don't know, sometimes it can raise the stakes because you're like, man, they're really married. Is that how they really fight? Is that how they really, you know, it can make it interesting for the movie itself. It timed out well that we both ended up being available when it was happening. And we just had a daughter. My daughter was only 4 months old when we shot the movie. So it was a really nice timing in our lives to do something like this together.
Was this done on purpose? I mean, did Adriana say, okay, I want both of you? Or was it just, it happened that way? Or was Mark picked first, or you picked first?
Mark was already attached for quite a while to this movie, and it just hadn't, you know, independents take a little while to, like, get everything together and get the funding and all those things happening. And then it timed out that it was like, oh my gosh, like, would Georgina want to play Pat? Like, you are married. She's right for the role. This would be great. And I was really happy because I wanted to work with Adriana. I really like her, and I met her a few times, and I've seen her work, and I was excited to do that. And it was a perfect time. I just had a baby, and I really wanted to get back to work, but that's not an easy thing to do. And this was just a very comfortable environment to do that in. being with Mark, and it was crazy too because 4-month-old, still like newborn phase. So you're not really sleeping, but it was a wonderful experience. It was a lot, but it was great.
So are you a hockey fan?
I am. I used to skate a lot as a kid. I didn't play hockey, but I used to play roller hockey in England. My dad was a big Maple Leafs fan and a Blue Jays fan and really loves Canada, hence why we ended up moving there. So I was always into hockey, but Mark, through marriage, I've now become a Canadians fan. And the game is always on, and now it's a comfort to me, like, when it's game night, and our daughter enjoys it too. So I enjoy watching the sport. I like the speed of it. It's a fun game, and it's an amazing game to watch. So yeah, I'd say I'm a hockey fan.
I don't know that is hockey as popular in England as it is in Canada? Probably not.
No, not as popular as Canada. No, my dad my grandfather was Canadian, so we just have a lot of Canadian ties, and I grew up with a lot of that kind of influence in the house.
What are you working on now?
Right now, I am working on a show for ABC. It's a new show called The Baker and the Beauty. It's a romantic comedy. It's going to be premiering April 13th at 10 o'clock after the new Bachelorette premiere. And I'm shooting that in San Juan. So I'm flying there a lot right now to Puerto Rico, and that's the new job I'm on right now. I'm just about to wrap up actually in the next month.
Oh, terrific! You're going to take some time off at this point?
Yeah, well, hopefully a little bit. You kind of see what's out there. Sometimes you can't. It's hard to know when to stop because you're like, oh, that's another good opportunity. So we'll see. We definitely as a family coordinate together and do what's best. We're in New York right now for City on a Hill. So we're doing that, and then, we'll see where the next thing takes us.
Well, super. Well, we got to wrap this up. My guest is Georgina Riley, and she's also in the movie Goalie. This is the All Goalie All the Time show. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. It was nice talking to you. Best of luck with all of your projects.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you. It was nice chatting with you, too. Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guests, Adriana Maggs, MarkO'Brien, and Georgina Riley. Best of luck with Goalie. I hope it does very well. This is Douglas Coleman saying I'll see ya